Hi, I'm Cheezi. Sorry. I don't have an intro.
What are you doing?
What do you mean? It's
A video?
Yes, I'm doing a video.
What do you mean we're doing a video?
There's a camera and a microphone. Doing a video. I'm in my shirt. Doing a video.
What does you being in your shirt? It feels like that's attached to you at this point.
I have other shirts. Okay, first of all.
Well, I don't see you outside of that room, so how would I know? That's your going outside of your room shirt.
That's fair, but also third of all, it's video time, you know?
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't accept this.
Videos take forever to make, and I'm only able to do like one a month, and I feel like, well, there's, you know, those aren't going to be super topical. Like the video that just came out this past, probably by the time this comes out, it's going to be like past weekend or two, or it's going to come out on a Monday. So earlier, either this week or last week, I released a video about the Game Awards, and that's like 4 months late to the party. And I feel like most of my videos are going to be like that. So I think that if there's stuff that comes out that's like interesting to talk about, we can do a video like this, where it's like really low budget and really low editing. Like, you know, if I go like, ooh, explosion, our heads just switched.
Oh.
Whoa. It probably won't happen. I was just about to say, why am I giving myself complicated edits when I'm saying we're supposed to do? It's not going to be like that. It's not going to be a heavily, like, overly edited thing. We'll probably have, like, little, like, game, like, movie footage of what we're talking about, of, like, the game or the show we're talking about, like, down here in this little square. Or maybe we'll have it up where this poster is. Speaking of which, this poster is Nuka-Cola. Roommate, what do you think we're going to be talking about today?
I'm thinking that we're going to be talking about Bethesda's hit series in, quite frankly, their best game, Morrowind.
We're talking about Fallout. What else fuck would we be talking about? Fallout's great. Well, I'm allowed to swear in this one, I don't care. Fallout's great. Yeah. So, Fallout. Let's set a baseline, right, for the two of us, because we're kind of speaking about this show as Fallout fans. I don't know how much. Fallout fans, what is our, like, your history with the Fallout franchise, first of all, before the show came out?
My first game was Fallout 3.
Dope.
I played that quite a bit as a kid. Didn't understand it at all. I kind of just played it and died a lot. But then I beat it with the mutant ending, where I sent him in to the laboratory and such. Mm-hmm. And in Vegas, I played for, I want to say, like 6 to 8 hours as a kid. Probably,
nice.
But
Okay.
it felt like an eternity.
Yeah, Vegas is kind of slow to get going, that one.
And then 4, I played probably the most out of the series, but I never beat.
Okay. And it's interesting you say, Fallout 3, the mutant ending where you like, send him in. Isn't that a thing that happened in a DLC? Because like the original game, when it released, you couldn't send, like you would talk to him and you'd be like,
it was an added one.
why don't you go in and do this? You're not going to die. You're going to be fine if you do it. And he's like, I wouldn't take this away from you. This is your destiny. So fuck you, guy. Why bring you away? My experience with Fallout was actually, first thing that ever happened with me with Fallout was me watching one of my friends play New Vegas, and this was shortly after I had gotten a Steam account. Playing New Vegas at their house, I was like, what's this? And they're like, oh, it's Fallout. Never heard Fallout before? And I was like, no, I'm so new to PC gaming. I was so late to the party on PC gaming, like midway through high school was when it really started.
I played it on the 360 and then the PS4.
So mine was on PC. And they were like, "This is New Vegas," and I was like, "Oh, this seems really interesting." And they're like, "Yeah, but they have a newer one that's out, so that you might want to try." And so my first ever time playing a Fallout game was actually Fallout 4. I played Fallout 4 first, and I played it vanilla, and I got all the way through, and I was this close to getting the ending, and then I gave up. Like I was like doing the Minutemen and helping them, and I sort of just gave up after a while. And retroactively, I went back and modded a lot of stuff, and since then, I have played Fallout New Vegas, and I got the lone, I think it's like the Lone Wanderer ending, where like you have Helpy, the like smiley face guy, take over, and you like do all that stuff, and you basically like solo the wasteland and like clean up everything the way you want to, kind of thing. I played that way, and I never did the final fight against the Centurions. I never did the final conflict with that. I basically resolved everything except that plot line, and I have this really bad habit with like those kinds of like big open world games where it's like the game is basically screaming at you, you're so close to the end, and I'm like, but what if I missed stuff? And so then I like put off doing the ending for as long as possible, because like I know I missed some cool stuff in here.
You never get to.
And they never finish it.
They are pretty fun. I've played quite a bit of Bethesda's like library. Like I was playing a little bit of Fallout 1. I played from Morrowind all the way up to Skyrim for the Elder Scrolls like collections. And then I played a lot of ESO and such, and then most of the Fallouts I've touched.
Nice. So, setting that as a baseline, we sort of kind of know what we're talking about when it comes to Fallout. And the new show came out, and I watched it pretty much the weekend it came out, and then I bothered him into watching it, and he did. And he, in fact, finished it, the last 2 episodes you finished yesterday?
I finished one of the episodes yesterday, and then the last episode this morning.
Okay. So, and I've been rewatching. I'm back up to the 4th episode, and we have some thoughts. So we're going to express those thoughts in a timely, low-edited, low-effort manner in video form. And we're going to make this a thing that we do maybe like twice a month, something like that. When we find a thing that we both like, that we both watched or played, and then like we have thoughts about it, we'll like set up and do this. I don't have a name for it yet. Maybe call it like the Cheese Couch, or like Couch Co-op, or Curdled Couch Convos. I don't know. I'll come up with something clever. I'm gonna pull out my phone and pretend like I have things written on here, even though I don't. I wanted to talk about the show in the context of its aesthetic, the way it holds to like the Fallout aesthetic and things like that. I want to talk about the actual narrative, the main story, which is the one thing in Fallout games that always blows. But I want to talk about like this Fallout show's like main story. Well, spoiler free, we won't talk about anything in the last 2 episodes, so if you've watched up until episode 6, you're safe up until we get to the end. The characters, I want to talk about the main 3 characters, and their sort of journey, and like how I feel like they're done. And then I want to talk about the effects, the graphics, talk about the CGI and the practical effects, and like all the cool stuff that they did. And then finally I want to have a spoiler talk and theory powwow about what we think Season 2 is going to be like, because it's approved for Season 2 already, so like that's happening. So let's start with aesthetics. Fallout is a very 1950s vibe. The lore of the games, it's like, you know, so like Cold War era, but like alternate history where leading up to World War II, like we went full nuclear power, and we were like very much like, hey, let's make everything out of fusion engines and like have our cars run by nuclear powers, and like personal portable computers are like this fucking big, and we've got personal robot assistants and stuff like that. And that is the aesthetic of the world before the bombs fall. I will say, the first scene in the show, and I've been rewatching it, and I love the like flashback bits with like Walter Goggins' character, which we'll talk more about in a minute. But I feel like the only part of the show that really nails, like the early flashback stuff, the only part of the show that really, I feel like, nails the aesthetic and gets it just perfect is the first scene of the first episode, the end scene, where like we see Walter Goggins and his kid are at a birthday party. And we see the way the cars look, and we see the way the city looks, and we see the way this like nice suburban family is living in like this big glass house, and like their TV, and we see like a Grognak the Barbarian cartoon pop up on the TV, which I love all the cute nods in the show.
It's nice.
They have so many good ones. Yeah. What were some of your favorites? I think of like Grognak, the automaton buried in the sand that we see in like the second episode.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of too many, but kind of like the way that they incorporate items from the game into the genuine show, like the way that they use stim packs or the traveling merchants and things like that.
The two-headed Brahmin that we see in like the first episode was very cool. I love how she's like, whenever we see them, she's drinking like the purified water bottle, and she's like eating the like deviled eggs that like the Bramco mac and cheese, Blamco mac and cheese is mentioned. It's like, oh, I ate that in the game. I like picked that up. Yeah, very colorful, very vibrant use of like the stuff. But like I was saying, first episode, first scene nails the aesthetic. I feel like every time we see Goggins' character in a house or in a city or like early flashback pre-war after that, it feels like we're just kind of in New York circa it doesn't really feel like they don't really like double down in the flashbacks, you know what I mean? I feel like that was the opportunity to really like set up, this is why everything looks weird in the future, but like there are multiple times where we see cars and I'm like, that's not a fusion car, that's just a normal ass car, or like a normal ass office building, and it's not.
The dude pulls up next to him in this tiny black car.
Yeah, how are we supposed to make a nuclear engine fit in there? You know, like I just feel like they could have gone harder on that with the flashbacks, and they really didn't, which is fine because they really nail it in the first episode, which is where you kind of have to. But anyway, what do you think, aesthetic-wise?
I think they're doing a really good job of making it feel existential. In the way that they're being super expansive on the shots when they're making them super small, and just there's so much out there. There's a lot of like unknown, especially to our main like character. She has no idea what's outside of the vault.
Lucy feels really small a lot of the time, and there's so many moments where like she's just like marching through the wasteland and she'll stop next to like this huge sunken ship that's just surrounded by sand, and it's like, how is this thing on the water before? Or like the first time she sees the crater with Maximus and she's like, this was a town, and we like see the library sign as she walks by. It's like, this is a place with like a public library and there were kids here, and now it's just a fucking crater. And like it really does feel huge and scary.
Yeah, daunting. Takes kind of that we want to establish a new world and makes it feel almost impossible. I agree.
I think it's beautiful. Show is gorgeous, brilliantly shot. Like, I don't know who the cinematographer or cinematographers are on it. I could probably look that up, but they just did a really stellar job.
They did, and it brought new life to Fallout, because every single way that we have seen Fallout depicted has been like super kind of goofy looking, and this makes it more colorful and real, I want to say.
Yeah, I feel like,
because we've always just seen like gray or orange in Fallout. We haven't really seen color other than in Fallout 4, when they actually took a step forward with their engine and such.
Yeah, 100%. And the Fallout show does something. It's like they're trying to marry the. It's like they're trying to marry the aesthetics of all, like, 3 of the most recent games. Like, we get a lot of, like, the sort of, because we're in that same sort of coast, that same area, we get a lot of, like, the Fallout New Vegas style of, like, just, like, the exterior world, the way the wastes look, big open sandy dunes and like no forest anywhere, just like dead everything, just huge desert is very much how like the wasteland looks, and then like the different locations and stuff. So, I swear, when they walked into Philly the first time, it was like, oh, this is This is the... I want to say Emerald City, but that's not right. The first town you go to where you meet Piper in Fallout 4. I was like, this is just straight up that.
Yeah.
Like, it looked... it was the way that they, like, did the broken down, ramshackled, built from scrap sort of, like, city in Philly was just perfect. And then, like, everything with the Brotherhood is very Fallout 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like, gritty, grungy, like, gunmetal. Like, yeah. And it feels like they did a good job of, like, taking the strengths of all the different aesthetics and, like, marrying them all together really well.
And it's like Lucy has the same storyline as Fallout 3's main character, essentially.
Yeah. Which, by the way, let's transition into story, since we're on that. The plot of this show is... basically, we have 3 different people whose stories we're kind of following. There's somebody pre-war who has survived somehow. Still don't know how, but he's surviving in the wasteland and trying to make a life for himself. There is... I'm so sorry about Bailey, by the way. He's very talkative. He wants to contribute to the conversation. He wants to be involved.
He's very much a Fallout fan.
A huge Fallout fan, absolutely.
He's been watching lore videos with me.
There is Lucy's character, who is Vault Dweller. Classic Vault Dweller, the one we all played as in the games, except for New Vegas. And then there is Maximus, a character who is
trying to rank up in the
Brotherhood of Steel. So what's interesting is we kind of get to see, because there are like 3 main playthroughs when you're playing a Fallout game. Either you try to be the Goody Two-Shoes hero of the wasteland, straight out of the vaults. You try to be like the lone wanderer, mysterious stranger type, or you like side with one of the factions and you become like a faction fanboy and you're like following. And I feel like those are like the 3 main play styles of any like given Fallout playthrough. And they sort of have those 3 stories intertwine in a way that's very seamless. Mm-hmm. I found myself forgetting that basically during the course of the show we're watching 3 different protagonists survive the wasteland. Like because each of them are given enough time to sort of like develop and breathe and are given a lot of really good moments. And each one is like the way the narratives tie into each other. Like the way the MacGuffin of this episode, which is the show, which is the head of that scientist, gets like passed around, and it's almost like a baton being passed to be like, and here's where your story develops, and here's where your story develops, you know? I feel like the weakest thing in the show is the Vault Tech story. And what I mean by that is, I feel like the amount of screen time we get in the vault after Lucy has already left is extraneous. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's a lot of hemming and hawing about like, oh yeah, Lucy's brother, she's investigating stuff and she's figuring out things about, and he's figuring out things about like, ooh, Vault-Tec is maybe bad. And like, we get the vibe of what they're trying to say by the end of episode like 3, and then it just sort of keeps going. And there's no new information until the last couple of episodes. And then it's like a big twist where we finally figure out what we've been ramping up to. But I feel like they didn't have a lot for...
Yeah, there was just mainly like character tension
inside
of the vault towards those like middle of the season arcs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there really wasn't anything building up. And then it was just randomly like, here.
Here you go. Here it is. Yeah, like the thing. It felt like we had to like really pad it out. I feel like it would have been fine even to just have a couple of episodes where there was no vault stuff. Like we could have cut out a lot of those sequences and given like Maximus and Lucy more time to hang out, or the Ghoul and Lucy more time to like sort of associate when nothing would have really been lost. I don't feel like learning about the overseers and like the way that their whole thing is going was kind of cool, but. We all knew Vault-Tec was bad. Like, from episode 2, we all knew they were bad. Like, we didn't have to keep hammering it home.
Lore, essentially, on how the vault system worked, which makes sense because on the overarching, they were very much like, these vaults are gonna do things. So...
And it really wasn't clear until later in the story what, like... they were like playing at an idea of what the vaults are supposed to do, like what Vault 31, 32, and 33, what their whole purpose was. I feel like we never, maybe I just need to rewatch, but I feel like we never really got a concrete answer as to what they were doing. Like, Lucy and Maximus end up in another vault that is like human, like, testing, like they're like turning people into like the frog monster we are introduced to earlier in the show.
Because Vault 4 was ran by only scientists.
Yeah. And it's like set up with like Walter Goggins' character. But I feel like we never really learn. Because like all the vaults have a secret, like nefarious twist where it's like, yeah, it's such a great place to live, but this is why it sucks. Like they talk about one vault, like in the ending, they're talking about like one vault about like, let's just give a bunch of people weapons and like give them way too few food and just see what they do with that. And it felt like we never got a concrete answer as to what the twist of 31 through 33 was. We never actually figured out, like, unless I'm mistaken. They never really came out and like demonstrated for us, hey, here's why there's this weird like marriage of these three vaults, and here's what they're like, what the real conspiracy is behind them. I feel like we're sort of left hanging on that one, if I remember correctly.
Well, essentially, because it's Buds, and they were to create a simulation where the executives of the company would branch out and come out and lead these vaults over time. And then once the world was like cleansed, it would they would go outside of the vault and rule the world, essentially, and build it from the ground up from whatever they believe.
Yes, okay. Yes, because we learned that, like, the person's bosses. Yes, okay. So, it was explained. But I think that's just a testament to how much, like, that whole, like, vault system just, like, completely... I mean, other than to just establish Lucy's dad, it really didn't do much for me narratively. Like, which is fine. And other people were probably obsessed with the whole vault stuff because, again, Vault Tech doesn't get a lot of characterization in the games, and seeing them have a big old like arc was really cool. But I just feel like the amount of screen time it took up did not match the impact it had.
No, it could have been like, excuse me, where instead of having like quarter episode snippets, they could have done half an episode here and there.
Yeah.
Where it was actually him like uncovering quite a bit in those sequences, or there was a huge character development sequence.
Yeah.
Rather than just, I did this thing.
Ooh, I found a computer and I messaged somebody and they replied. Like, that's a whole sequence. That's a whole like 15 or like 10-minute sequence of him like going into the overseer's office, getting on her computer, typing in, talking to somebody. There's like some vague messages about like, drama. And then he like leaves the computer and stands back up and walks away. And she walks in and is like, what are you doing in here? And he's like, nothing. And she's like, cool. And he leaves. It's a whole sequence. Like, that doesn't feel like we needed that. Not really. But that's another thing with like these kinds of shows too, is that so much of it is padding runtime. I'm gonna be honest, like with a lot of like recent direct-to-streaming shows where like we get the whole thing, it's like there's so much stuff that after you go back and rewatch the show again, it's like, oh, in the moment this was really stressful and like intriguing, but now that we know the gambit, it's not as fun to watch a second time, you know?
Yeah, and at this point it's just like Easter egg hunting.
Yeah.
And just searching for weird things they put in the show.
Exactly. It's hard to, like, I feel like the retention with, like, Lucy and Maximus and the Ghoul, like, watching them just, like, explore the wasteland, learn how screwed up it is, and, like, really, like, watching Lucy sort of develop in the show is the heart of it.
Yeah. And
then there's just, like, a lot of, like, lore build up around the world. A lot of the show, the story is establishing the world.
100%.
Which is necessary. Like, a whole audience who's never played the games is about to watch this, so, like, need to know what they're getting into. But yeah.
And talk about the resurgence. Like...
Yes! Oh my gosh. People are playing the Fallout games and realizing they're good. All of them. Even 4. You know, people hated 4 when it came out, but people were playing the games and they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like, which is what these shows should do. They really should be gateways to the games.
Yeah.
Like, and
it's like literally the weekend that Fallout came out on Game Pass, every single Fallout game in the series was trending.
Perfect time to talk about season 2 and theories and how we felt about the ending. Let's rip the band-aid off. Lucy's dad being a secret villain and nuking Lucy's mom for wanting to leave the vault into being a ghoul? Ah! It was so cool!
That's
Oh! I mean, I feel like we all sort of saw Evil Dad coming when he drowns the guy in the barrel, in the pickle barrel. I feel like all of us sort of got a little bit of a shudder when he did that, and like his facial expression didn't change at all. Like, you are way too quick to like just like callously murder people after you beat this guy with a shovel. Like, you are way too quick. They do a really good job of foreshadowing through the whole show too, like stuff that's gonna happen and be relevant. But that random ghoul sitting at the dining table, I didn't know that that was the mom until they basically said it.
Yep.
Like, I didn't like, that was such a surprise.
It was very well done because we hadn't ever seen or known anything about her mom or what she looked like.
Just those weird flashbacks where like she's all overexposed, and the ghoul didn't look anything like her either. And so it was only when we see the necklace and we're like, no! It was so good. And the fact that Lucy has to shoot her own mom in the head in front of her dad, and then has to fucking hunt him down with the ghoul going across the wasteland to New Vegas. It's gonna be.
And it makes me sad that what's his name from Friends?
Huh?
From Friends, who recently passed.
Perry
something.
Oh, Matthew Perry.
Yeah, he was the voice actor in New Vegas. He was Benny. Tragic. We could have easily had a
Benny. We could have had a Benny. Well, it's sort of implied that this takes place after the events of New Vegas. So we could only have a Benny if, canonically, Benny doesn't get murdered by the postman in this baggie.
Well, actually, it's not always going to happen because you can steal the chip, but ideally it's going to happen.
Yeah, it usually happens in Vegas that he gets killed. Rest in peace, Benny. Matthew Perry, you're a genius. You were the best part of Friends. Literally, you were probably the only actually consistently funny person on that show.
Other than Jerry Seinfeld.
I'm excited.
I am.
I am full of anticipation. My pants are full of jizz, maybe, from this show. Would we say
That's
so?
gross.
It's disgusting. Hence, Cheese Couch. I don't have a way to end this kind of stuff.